up your engine! Today I'm going to show you how to drive a standard transmission car. Now in the United States these days, over 90% of the people drive automatic transmissions. Many have no idea how to drive a standard. I'm going to show you how easy it actually is to learn, especially if you already know how to drive. Because in modern cars, the gear shift's just right here. Simple, smooth things, not hard to do. And as you can see down here, they have very smooth hydraulic clutches. Very little effort is needed. Now, back in my parents' day, learning how to drive a car in a standard, that was a real feat because they had to learn how to shift and learn how to drive at the same time. You got to figure out how to get it to gear, how to go, how to steer, how to brake. Most people here, we already know how to drive. So the hardest stuff is gone. All you got to learn is how to shift gears. It's not that hard. And even when I was a young mechanic in the 1960s, a customer had a Corvette. That clutch was a mechanical clutch you stepped on with linkage. It was so hard, you practically had to put your back against the seat, almost use 2 feet. The clutch pedal was so stiff. These modern ones are so smooth. Because since they use brake fluid to go to the clutch master cylinder, it's a very smooth process. I'll tell you, it amazes me that back in the day, people learned how to drive without killing themselves and other people. They didn't have power steering. Their brakes weren't power brakes. They were hard to stop. Huge, giant monstrosities with big steering wheels. And then you had a gear shift that often was on a tree. 3 on a tree, they called. You had the 3 gears on the column. You had to pull them in, rip them up, go down, use the clutch. It was complicated. Modern cars, it's very simple. So I'll close the hood and show you. Now the first thing you want to do is make sure the car's in neutral. So it moves back and forth freely. You can see there's reverse, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a 6-speed. When it's in the middle, that's neutral. Car can't move when it's neutral. You have it neutral, then you have to push down on a clutch with your foot because they won't start. There's a neutral start switch there. Then you push the key and it starts. Just like an automatic transmission, there's a safety device. You can't start the car in a modern car unless you push the clutch down. So if you did have it in gear, it wouldn't move. It's always a good idea to put it neutral anyways. With it in neutral and your foot on the clutch, play with the gears. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then over 5, 6. Those are the gears. You can play with them with your foot on a clutch to get the feel of it. Reverse here is down and up. It's got a lockout, so you got to push down a little, over and up. Then it will go backwards. The reason they do that with a lockout is so when you're driving, you can't just, instead of going in first, go in reverse and wreck the transmission. This is first all the way over. You want to reverse, like I say, you got to push it down, over, then it's in reverse. And in this, it's easy to tell if you're in reverse because it's got a backup camera. And as you see, when you put it in reverse, the backup camera comes on. And the first thing to always remember is, whenever your foot is pushing the clutch down, that disconnects the engine from the transmission, so it can't move. So no matter what you do, as long as your foot is pushed all the way to the floor in the clutch, you're not in gear. So let's say something bad starts happening, the car starts shaking because you can't figure out how to do it right. Quick push the clutch to the floor, then the transmission and engine will be disconnected and everything will be smooth and you can start from scratch. Now I'm going to drive to an open area. Today's Sunday where there's no people, and that's where you can practice it first. And here we are, a big empty parking lot on a Sunday morning. Great place to practice. So we'll start out with safety. The emergency brake's on. Make sure it's in neutral. Push your foot on the clutch and then start the car. Okay, it can't roll because it's in neutral. So we'll take the parking brake off. With the clutch pushed onto the floor, we have it in first gear now. Push it in first. Now, you give it a little bit of gas. You can't just step on the gas and go. You give it a little bit of gas, and as you give it a little bit of gas, you lightly pick up on the clutch till the car begins to move. And then you're moving forwards. Just keep practicing that. It'll first do things like this. It'll jerk, it'll stall. But remember my cardinal rule. If it starts jerking, push the clutch to the ground. When you push it to the floor, that disconnects the engine and transmission, then it will stop jerking. Just keep practicing. Since it's stalled out, push the pedal to the floor again. Start the car. Put it in first gear and give it just a little bit of gas. and then you start rolling. Now once you practice that, then when you go to the next gear, you just push the clutch in, put it in the second gear, and away you go. And you got 6 other gears to mess with. As you can see, you're rolling, then put it in second gear with the clutch pushed down, then pick the clutch up. Now once the car is already rolling, it's very easy to go from gear to gear. And if you're a pro like me, you can do it without even using the clutch. See, I went from second to third without using the clutch. Now, it takes a pro to do that. As you can see, if you're a pro, I'm not using the clutch. I know how to match it. I can get it into gear, force it in there, and it doesn't clunk or anything if you know what you're doing. But don't try that until you really know how to drive. I've been driving standard transmission since I was 16 years old, so I know how to do it. Don't try that, it'll grind and clunk. Use the clutch all the time when you're learning. Now often the hardest is backing up, so push your foot on the clutch all the way to the floor. And on this, you got to push it down, see? Down, push, and then over. Now it's in reverse, and you know because the backup camera's on. And you do the same practice. You give it a little bit of gas, and then you feather the clutch and pick it up, and up you go. And here's a really good trick for backing up. You're backing up, you're generally not going that fast, right? So, when you are backing up, you can leave your foot partly on the clutch. You don't have to pick it the whole way up. See, I'm just picking it up a little and we're going backwards. As you can see, we're backing up and you're going slow, so it doesn't really matter that you keep your foot on the clutch. Now, when you're driving forwards, you don't want to keep your foot on the clutch all the time. That's called riding the clutch. And what that will do is it will wear the clutch out prematurely over thousands of miles. But you don't back up that much, so you can just leave your foot on the clutch, maybe not even pick it the whole way up, but pick it part way. And when you do that, you're going to get, see, a lot smoother, and it won't do the herky-jerkies. So just remember, you ever have a problem, push down on the clutch, that disconnects the engine from the transmission, jerking will stop, and practice a bunch. Neutral. Push down on the clutch. Put it in first, it's not going to go anywhere. Then lightly give it a little gas while you pick the clutch up very quietly, and away you go. And you shift the gear into second, and then into third. Now, of course, everybody asks, when do I shift? What RPMs do I shift at? Well, that just depends on how fast you want to go, how good gas mileage you want to get. There's no set RPM to shift at any gear. You don't want to go over 7,000 RPMs in this. It kind of revs the engine up. But that has to do with power, speed, and gas mileage. Of course, the lower the RPMs, the better the gas mileage. And the higher the RPMs, the better acceleration you're going to have. Example, we're in first gear, we're taking off. Maybe you want to go at normal speed. Okay, so maybe go around 3,500 RPMs, shift it into second, and then every time you get going, shift it into third. And that's normal acceleration. The car can cruise perfectly fine at just about any speed over 1,500 RPM. You don't want to be dogging it like this and driving the thing around in third gear when you're going 10 miles an hour, because then it just doesn't have much acceleration when you floor it, see? Now in this Mazda, it's set up to help people out. It tells you what gear you're in. You can see 1, and then it shows 2, 3, and those are giving you suggestions for the best gas mileage. If you really want good gas mileage, see, now it says shift it into 4th to get better gas mileage. You won't have acceleration, but you'll get better gas mileage. Now, they didn't have this stuff when I was young. It makes it a lot easier to drive. Now, let's say you want to go really fast. Well, you're not supposed to do this, but you rev the engine real high and dump the clutch. Then you can really go. Now, especially in one of these Mazda Miatas, a standard transmission makes these things so much more fun to drive. You have more control, more acceleration. It just makes a really fun experience. Scotty, how come you made the tires spin? I thought it has traction control, but you see, I turned it off. This car's cool. It's got a little button. You can have it on, or you can turn it off. I like it off. And so when you're going up hills like this, you might rev it a little higher so you get better acceleration. If you just want to cruise along, yeah, you can put it in the higher gears and you don't have all the acceleration, but you're going to get better gas mileage. See, here again it's saying shift to 4th. It says shift to 5th for better gas mileage now. And it shows you what gear you can put in for the best gas mileage. Computerized stuff can help you get better gas mileage. Just realize there's no rule at what RPM that you shift gears. You learn what power you want, what gas mileage you want, and you put them in those gears. Let's say it's icy or snowy. Then what you'd want to be in one of the higher gears. Like here, you could be in third gear, only going 10 miles an hour, and you won't have any acceleration, but the tires then won't spin on the snow or ice. So you can carefully drive in a lower gear when the road is dangerous. Now, some modern cars with automatic transmissions have that built in. They have a button that'll say snow or ice, and when you put that, it puts the car into a higher gear, so there's less power, so the wheels won't spin easily, and you'll have more control. Well, of course, you can do it yourself. When you have a standard 6-speed transmission, you got a lot of gears you can play with. Now, even I might not be as old as you think I am. I learned how to drive an automatic transmission Chevy, but the first car I bought was an Opel with a standard transmission. I already have my driver's license from learning how to drive in the automatic Chevy. It took me about 15-20 minutes to learn how to drive a standard. It's not that hard if you already know how to drive. And once you learn how to drive a standard transmission car, if you always had your heart set on driving a fast motorcycle, well, then you'll be able to drive a standard motorcycle. The only thing you have to learn there is, then you have to learn how to use your left hand for the clutch and your left foot to shift it, because the clutch is on the handlebar and the shifter is on the transmission by your feet, so you got to shift it with your feet. But they're sequential. They don't go up and around. They go up one gear, down one gear. Racing motorcycle or a racing car has just straight shifts. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, one at a time. There's no moving. It's all in a straight line. So if you're craving a little red sports car like this, and you just want to learn how to drive a standard to have more fun, it's a lot easier than you might think, learning how to drive a standard when you already know how to drive a car anyway. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.